Hi again, welcome to the next instalment of the comprehensive review comparison between the JR Touch 3 Quantum and the Vitamix Professional Series 750. A starting section, if you're watching the long video, welcome to the next part. If you're watching this in an individual video, check out all the other videos in this series of tests between these two. There's sort of 9 or 10 different tasks that we do with them to show the difference between the two, or essentially the two best blenders on the market at the moment, and comparing the two. So have a look, see what you think. In this section we're going to be doing ice. We're going to be doing one of them, if you're into cocktails and things like that, we're going to be blending, we're going to be crushing ice in these machines, and we're looking basically to add whole chunks of ice, rock hard ice, into these machines. A good commercial blender should be able to crush down ice. If you're making sort of smoothies and you're adding ice into it, you don't want blocks and chunks of ice, you want to be crushing that ice down. And also if you're doing cocktails and things like that, you might actually want crushed ice to add into these things. You can also make slushies and so on. So I'm going to be doing actually trying to just turn blocks of ice into what is essentially snow, dry blending this ice and turning it into what is like snow. The Vitamix instructions, you go online and so on, a lot of time they say in Vitamix you should blend it with water. Now you see that's not what we're doing here. We want to blend the ice dry into snow. If you're adding it with water, you can blend that down. It's going to essentially make more of a slushy, and they say strain off the water afterwards and to leave that crushed ice. Yes, it will do that, but you'll get a very wet, soggier, sort of softer ice. We're looking for dry ice, basically, sort of like snow. So we're using the 2 litre capacity jugs in this particular test. I may try and introduce the cyclone jar again for some ice later in this section, but for this immediate section, part of this section, we're going to use the 2 litre jugs and add a litre up to the litre line in each with ice. So I'll pause it now, I'll add the ice, and we'll start blending, see how we can crush this down. Okay, so quick pause there while I've filled the blenders. Okay, so I've used proper big chunks of ice that you get out your fridge or out your refrigerator or your freezer, sorry, or actually we bought these, got these from the local store, local shop. And what I've done to make this fair, I've actually gone, there's the 1 litre line, just below the 1 litre line on both of these, just below. So I've gone just below the 1 litre line, so there's pretty much identical amount of ice in each of these. And we're just going to run their preset functions. Got an ice cream set in there, we'll use that one I suppose. This has actually got an ice cream which can double as an ice crush as well. Now theoretically in this video you'll see the difference between the two is the noise level, but also the brushless motor on the Quantum. It has high torque, so it rotates at a more consistent RPM. And when it contacts the ice, which is very hard, the brushless motor, because it has more torque, it can continue to cut through the ice with less loss of power, less loss of speed. With the standard brushed motors, they have high power, high speed, but when they contact with such hard food, that resistance from the food slows that rotation down, so you get a loss of rotation speed, and that should come into the fore here, because basically when you're blending ice, you need to be throwing the ice around. If it settles too much, it starts to block up the bottom and you don't get an even ice crush. So we're going to just show the two. We'll use the 2 different presets on here. To do it. I don't think, they haven't got an ice crush preset on there. I'll probably end up just using the presets and seeing how it goes and turning it off beforehand, but it shouldn't be a too difficult job. It's a tough job for any blender, really, this. I'd be surprised, I'm interested to see the results of this, because it's a tough job of any blender, especially the quantity of ice we've put in there. So we'll just get straight on and do this. We'll see exactly how well these perform. So let's just do it both at the same time. Okay, and we'll go that, and we'll just turn that on, and here we go. So that's the preset on the Vitamix finished. And I couldn't talk. You'll notice that I'm now, the Vitamix is finished, and there's still got 30 seconds left on this preset, on the Quantum, and I can talk now. Look at this, how quiet this machine is, and it's actually pulsing. The Vitamix just does a consistent blend. It may work out brilliantly, I haven't seen the result yet, but you see the Quantum is pulsing, so it lets the ice drop and then it pulses again. And this is actually medium speed. It's the fan is what's making the noise on that. That is blending. You can hardly hear anything. That is blending. So just let that finish. Okay. So the fact that you can actually talk and I can speak to you while it's blending, because it wasn't on high speed, it was pulsing up and down. It's a completely different machine. It's a completely different animal. And what it does is it blends at high speed, then it stops, then it does a little bit, then it blends, then it stops, and it's consistently throwing the ice up and down. Okay, so let's see how this goes. Let's get these lids off. Okay. Right. Okay, so you look in there. That's superb. So that's the Vitamix. That was on the preset with the Vitamix. I don't need to get any of that out and show any. That is, you can see the blaze. It's pushed all the ice to the side, and I'm looking straight down in there, and there is not a single unblended bit of ice. Now this professional 750 series, I have to say, with previous Vitamix models, it was to say actually put water in with it and blend with water, and then strain off the water afterwards. I don't know if they're still suggesting that with the 750 professional series, but I would suggest, if they're still suggesting putting water in, that you don't bother, because credit where credit's due, that's of all our tests so far, this is the best result that we've had from the Vitamix so far in the test, you know, just for the Vitamix. That's excellent. That's very, very good. Fully blended ice. And the Quantum, the JR Touch 3 Quantum, actually looks a little bit, that one looks a bit harder. This is a little bit fluffier. It's more like snow. It's more fluffy. It's like you go out on a winter's day and it's snowy. I mean, that's superb. So that as well, that is fully blended, and it's actually come higher up the jug. You can actually see it. I don't know if you see it. This is a full big 2 litre jug, and it's thrown the ice all the way up. So you can see it's, when we were talking about pulsing and throwing the ice, it's really thrown the ice up. And again, there's not a single unblended bit of ice in there. Now these blenders, I've got to say, Vitamix has done an excellent job there on theirs, and the JR Quantum has also done an excellent job. And I have to say, on both these parts, we're comparing these two, but if we're going to now just put these against other blenders, although we haven't got other blenders here, if you're going to now put them in a bracket and compare verbally against other blenders, I don't think there's any other blender. There may well be, of course, but I haven't personally tested any other blender other than these two that can blend ice, crush ice into snow like that. Like them two. Now obviously it's down to you, your decision. If you're going to be blending a lot of ice, making a lot of crushed ice, either of these machines, these are performing very well, both of them. You can't really choose between the two. But what you can choose between is how it blends that ice with regards to the noise, how long it took. The preset on the Quantum was a little bit longer, but it blends very quietly. The brushless motor is very quiet, so depending on where you're doing your ice, the Vitamix just sort of screamed at it and just pumped it full of power and blended it. Worked beautifully. That's not a negative point, but it's just louder when it does it compared to the Quantum, which does it, the JR Quantum, which actually sort of blends a bit more subtly, keeps the ice flowing around and chips away at it for an extra sort of 30 seconds or so. So whether that had something to do with the more fluffiness to the ice, it's a bit more solid, the ice in there, it's a bit more solid, a bit more fluffy in the Quantum. So look, in this test, crushing ice between the two, not a lot of difference. Vitamix was a bit louder, Quantum did it, took about 20 seconds longer, but much more quiet when it did it. The final result, really nothing to choose between them. So in this section, crushing ice, there's a draw in this section. So check back if it's an individual video you're watching, have a look at the other tests we're doing. If it's the long video you're watching, see you in the next part.